Welcome to the channel. I just got back from watching Blue Beetle and boy was I surprised. This movie felt like it was on thin ice with DC throwing away an almost completely finished Batgirl movie, as well as canceling their Wonder Twins movie right before production started. James Gunn is taking over the DCU and completely rebooting everything, but somehow, by some miracle, Blue Beetle actually made it to theaters. Now, I think unanimously we're all at a point of superhero movie fatigue or even exhaustion from the sheer amount of lackluster movies being shoved out of the content machine. So going into this movie, as much as I wanted to believe this was going to be a great film from the trailers, I went in with realistic expectations just in case the movie was another cash grab. But thankfully, I was really surprised with this one. There was so much heart packed into it. It felt like there was so much more to the movie than just pushing the plot. I think having a family, or better yet, just the characters, be the focus of the movie was so refreshing. This movie, hands down, beat anything Marvel has done in a long time. Watching this movie felt like watching the first Ant-Man movie, or even close to the first Iron Man. It was so nice to have a superhero movie that wasn't being pushed forward just so they could fit the plot on screen. And the movie itself, minus the title sequence and the credits, is only an hour and 50 minutes long, which is a great length for this movie. Having superhero movies pushing the 3-hour mark and some of them going well over it has gotten exhausting as well. The sub 2-hour runtimes are way easier to digest in one sitting and are way less of a commitment to go watch. I don't want to have to look for a 4-hour time slot in my week just to go see the new movie. I really loved that each person in this movie had the spotlight for their own reasons. They didn't only hold the talking stick when they needed to further the plot and move the scene forward. Each person brought their own bit of heart to this film, and while it might not help move each scene forward faster, it drastically helped the film's overall performance. This is what we want movies to go back to. It felt like I was watching a movie that had something of substance to it that was worth watching. There was no regrets watching this movie. I didn't look at the clock after and think, how long was I in here? Was that worth it? If anything, it was the opposite. I was impressed with how great of a movie it was for how short it ended up feeling. I don't know who started it, maybe Avengers Infinity War, but at some point it felt like movies thought they needed to be longer to perform better, and they just keep getting longer and longer while the content is just mediocre. So I'm really happy to see the bar be placed back where it should be by Blue Beetle. This movie wasn't perfect on all fronts, but I think it was a huge step in the right direction, improving character, story, plot, pacing, even keeping it grounded. This movie nailed so many things on the head. I love that it brought a somewhat smaller superhero to the big screen. There's a lot of people who have never heard of Blue Beetle until this movie, and this was a great introduction to a brand new character for a lot of people. I think even after seeing this movie, a lot of people would love to see Blue Beetle back on the big screen and see him share the screen with maybe the Justice League or Batman or Superman.
This isn't a game, Beetle. If you want to be part of the Justice League, you don't work on impulse. You plan ahead.
The hardest thing for them will be the struggle to keep all the heart that they had in this movie and bring that same level of love to the next thing he's in. Ant-Man 1 is far superior to Ant-Man 3. Yes, he needs to play well with others, but he's a package deal. His family is what makes this character have so much heart. It would be really difficult to progress the character through 2-3 more movies and replace the family element with bigger problems like a multiverse or something. Hopefully when we see him return to the screen, they'll give it the same love and treatment this movie got, because honestly, the family and heart of this movie was the best part. Also, real quick, don't forget to subscribe if you're enjoying the video. Only like 12% of the people watching this video right now are actually subbed. It's totally free and it helps out. I hear once you subscribe, Blue Beetle actually comes to your house tonight just to say hi. We went through a superhero phase of movies in the 2010s, starting largely with Iron Man in 2008, going all the way through Avengers Endgame. That was the prime era of superhero movies that we loved. After Endgame, they tried upping the stakes with the multiverse and bringing such complex villains and problems into these movies and shows that required so much explaining that most people don't care enough to keep up with. The average Joe doesn't want to juggle timelines in their head and remember which ones get retconned or not. Add that problem to the multiverse gives everyone so much plot armor that nothing really matters anymore. If one person dies, so what? There's an infinite amount of other versions of them now to play with. We can time travel and just undo it or create a new timeline. It's been a while since we had another good superhero movie come along, and when one does, it's usually because it's unique in some way, different from all the others that just aren't working anymore. And to Into the Spider-Verse was a home run not only because of how unique it looked visually, but also because of its story. Yes, it did deal with the multiverse, but it also created an entirely new visual feel to the superhero genre, along with introducing another unknown superhero at the time, Deadpool. I don't think the casual moviegoer knew much about him, or that he was as raunchy or as funny as he was before the movie came out. These were both breaths of fresh air in the superhero space. And next was The Batman, not only because it had been 17 years since the last time Batman was rebooted and given his own movie, but also because it tried to do something so different stylistically. We've never had a mainstream superhero movie be so emo before, and while it's a harder watch than the other two movies, it was still really refreshing to see. This Blue Beetle film felt like such a breath of fresh air. It's gotten to the point where I don't remember the last Marvel project that I was head over heels for, probably the last Spider-Man movie because they brought all the old Spider-Man back. I haven't watched half the things they've done recently, from Miss Marvel, Eternals, Secret Invasion, Quantumania, Wakanda Forever, She-Hulk, Love and Thunder, the list goes on. I think we really needed this, and I hope that this film succeeds so much that it inspires the next superhero films to invest more in the heart and characters of the film and not just the plot. Yeah, you could argue that it's a clean slate, a brand new character starting from nothing, the world's their oyster, but I think we'd just the same love to see smaller scale stuff in the MCU. I hope DC uses this for their new movies moving forward as well. This film was a blast to watch. Not only was it a good film, but it was a fun film from start to finish. And you know what? When you leave the theater, you feel good after watching it. I think closure is so important for watching movies, especially in theaters. As the credits start rolling, what are those emotions you start to feel? Good, bad, unsatisfied? I think how you feel walking out of that movie will stick with you just as much as some of the highest highs in the film will. And Blue Beetle had you leaving feeling great. George Lopez as Uncle Rudy was a gem. He could be serious when he needed to be, but boy was it fun to see him on screen. He was hilarious. His character brought so many good laughs to this movie, and it was great. The soundtrack for this movie hit, the characters were relatable and had real-world struggles. It was solidly entertaining to watch. This movie had Tom Holland's Spider-Man vibes. They found that youthful, fun, wholesome energy and brought it to this film. They also seemed to find the sweet spot with the comedy. Most of it didn't feel forced or stale, and it worked just like it should. You fall in love with these characters, and now I just really hope they don't get rid of him. I want to see him meet the new Batman and the new Superman, and I want to see him on screen with the Justice League. It would feel the exact same as Tom Holland's Spider-Man getting introduced to the MCU and meeting all the big heroes there. It was really nice to walk out of a movie feeling like it didn't push any agendas. It's become way too frequent in movies to have some underlying agenda, and this didn't have that. I think that's another thing that made this movie so incredibly refreshing to watch. They didn't try to make you feel bad because you were or weren't something, or say that this is better than that. It was just a fun film where everybody felt like they were having a good time. I really enjoyed that this film worked as a superhero movie, even though it felt like action wasn't the main part of the movie. It was filled with so many other things, from hope, family, good character development, comedy, and a lot of heart, but it almost felt like the action you would expect in a superhero movie kinda took the back seat here, but it was totally fine because all the other elements filled the movie in so well. And don't get me wrong, the action and the Blue Beetle suit and the weapons were really cool, looked great, but it wasn't the reason this movie was made or the reason that it was so entertaining. If anything, I would have added a little more intensity to the fights, just because it's basically the Scarab taking over its host's body and fighting for them. I think they could have done something like the movie Upgrade did and really pushed the intensity in the out-of-body fighting a little harder, but at the same time, you can only push it so much or it feels like he's a bit invincible. I think that one of the reasons this movie was so good is because it let some things take the back seat in a sense, while they put more emphasis on family and the heart of this story. It's been way too long since we've seen a superhero movie that I've connected with the characters this much and felt so attached when things happen to them. It's emotional, it feels grounded, and much more real than recent superhero shows and movies have been leaning into. If you don't care about the characters in whatever you're watching, who cares what happens to them? You have to have realistic, likable characters for your audience to connect with so they care when you tell the rest of your story. The only thing was sometimes it felt like there was a little too many jokes. Sometimes it just seemed like everyone's lines were just one joke after the other, especially towards the beginning of the movie. It definitely wasn't trying to be a dark movie in any way. It's a light-hearted action comedy superhero movie, which is fine. I just think they could have trimmed the fat, cut out all the random jokes that were just out of place and didn't work. But for the most part, part, this film was great on all other fronts. Moving forward, like I said, I hope this kind of reset the bar back where it should be for not only the length of the movie, but for the enjoyability, for how grounded it should be, for how much we connect with the characters of the movie, for how much heart it has, for how much reason we have to watch the movie. Just put a little substance in the next films. Everything is so dry and drab recently, I could really use a little extra heart in the next upcoming projects. Who knows if we'll see Blue Beetle 2, or him in Justice League, or Young Justice, even better. Just fingers crossed they don't reset him after the universe reset. I think this movie was a gem and I'd love to see him return to the DCU. If you've seen this movie, tell me in the comments what you thought of it. I'll be back with another video soon, and until next time, I will see you in the comments. Peace.